Honour to be here speaking to you. My name is Simon Webb. I'm the General Manager of the BBC Philharmonic. Every 2 or 3 years, a real highlight for us is touring Spain. It's quite a novelty for me to be here without about 100 musicians following me, but I'm delighted to be here. The orchestra I run, the BBC Philharmonic, is one of the world's great broadcast orchestras, but that comes with an enormous responsibility. And really that responsibility is to reinvent ourselves all the time. The world of broadcast media is being reinvented very quickly. And at work, I get wheeled out on panels at the BBC with the digital people and the future-thinking people, and I'm wheeled out there as the comedy turn. I'm like the 18th century construct that really hasn't changed, and in the face of this modern world. And that challenge I've really taken on, the orchestra has taken on. It's about reinventing orchestras for the 21st century, and it's a very exciting thing to do. At its core is collaboration. But the first place we look for collaboration is inside the orchestra itself. When you collaborate, you look for the leaders, you look for the people that you can talk to. And in my world, to be a musician is to be a leader. When we think back to the beginning, when we first give a child a musical instrument and we ask them to play, we give them permission to find their own voice, to express themselves, to communicate. As they keep studying, as they gain in expertise, they find that voice, they articulate their own identity through music. And what a wonderful thing that is. They operate with integrity, with honesty, with self-awareness. They become decision makers. They take risks. They inspire each other, they inspire us, and they challenge us. And through playing in ensembles, they learn to communicate and to work as a team. But these are all the attributes of a leader. This is what we're making when we're training young musicians. We're making leaders. Then what do? We give them a job in an orchestra. We tell them when to come to work. We tell them when to take a break. We tell them when to start, when to stop. We tell them which notes to play, how to play them, what sound to make. We require them to sacrifice that individuality for the sake of the community of the ensemble. This version of an orchestra, to me, is a little bit like a garden, but a garden where every plant has been trimmed and manicured to the extent that they've lost their own real identity, a formal garden where the individuality of the plants is sacrificed to the greater good of the design. Or maybe it's like a vegetable plot, beautifully maintained, certainly with its own particular attraction and, of course, its very own purpose. But is that what we want our orchestras to be? Do we want them to be productive, neat and tidy, well organized? And that's it? In this version of an orchestra, do we, their managers, the leaders of this sector, allow them really to be musicians? Or do we require them to be more like those plants in a productive garden, reproducing what we need when we need it? What's happened to their individual voices, their musical identities, their artistic integrity, honesty, and self-awareness? Is this how it should be? Well, I started by saying that every musician is a leader. And one of the decisions I listed is decision-making. We'll just look at a couple of those characteristics of leadership. Our musicians, we know that they do as they're told by us, their managers, by the conductor, by the composer. That's what they do, isn't it? Well, when a highly skilled orchestral string player performs, they are making a series of rapid, intricate, extremely important decisions. The contact point for the bow's speed, the angle that the left-hand finger hits the string. All of this in a split second and repeated rapidly throughout any session they play. They are making a series of decisions, important decisions, that have a direct impact on the quality of the end product. These same principles apply across the whole orchestra. Brilliant, rapid, accurate decision-making. Decision-making made with an acute awareness of those around them, the impact they're having, their role. This is not the behavior of an anonymous bit player in an orchestra. This is the behavior of a born leader. And what about their individual artistic identity, their own musical voice? The BBC Philharmonic, there they are. 89 musicians. Are they 89 individual artists with individual voices? Are they 89 leaders? Or do they have to do what they are told for the greater good of the ensemble, to prevent it descending into some kind of chaos? Just returning for a minute to the gardens, if we allow our musicians really to be artists, to express themselves as individual musicians, would we not have a wild garden full of beautiful individual plants, but with no identifiable structure, no unifying concept, a marvelous collision of colour and sensuality, but something that we would not recognise really as a planned garden? Would we have musical chaos if they all expressed themselves as individuals? Well, no, we don't. These are individual artists, individual music leaders. And when I listen to them, and I'm sure it's the same for you, I don't hear chaos. Something is making them to come together into a coherent whole. Of course, there is the music. They're all playing off the scores. And my wild plants in my wild garden don't have the benefit of a score to follow. But here's an example of a score. I'm sure you all recognize it. Le Sacre. This is the Rite of Spring, a little bit from the middle of there. It requires all of those attributes that I listed earlier, all the attributes of a leader. Individually, the way these leadership attributes are demonstrated are small, fleeting moments. And this is an important point for us to understand. It is the small things that make a big difference. As leaders ourselves, leaders and managers, we know, it pains us to know this, but we know that it is the small things that make a big difference. We rarely make really big decisions. They may be the ones by which we are judged, by which maybe we are remembered, but it is the small daily actions that define our leadership, how we greet our colleagues, our appreciation of their work for us, those moments of flexibility when we allow people the space and freedom to grow and develop. These are the small, repeated actions, and these are really what define us as leaders. And this is what our musicians do, day after day, all day, every day. Those profoundly wonderful attributes that make every musician a leader are not lost when they join an orchestra. But do we see them? Do we, their managers, do we appreciate them? And do we value them? Do we learn from them? And most importantly, do we model ourselves on our musicians? Let's look at this from the other direction. What are we actually asking our musicians to do? Every orchestral musician cares deeply about the sound they make. Running a radio orchestra, I am reminded of this every working day. The quality of sound of the ensemble is built on the individual identities of every single musician in the orchestra, their artistry, their integrity, their honesty, their individual voices coming together to create the brilliantly complex sound that is an orchestra. Well, how is this achieved? Well, here's one answer, and this is a particularly good answer. A very fine answer, I believe, is in Madrid today, actually. This is our principal conductor, Juanjo Mena. But I'm talking about a different kind of leadership. This leadership is crucial, absolutely essential for an orchestra. But no conductor, not even Juanjo, could do their job without the leadership qualities that run like a seam of liquid gold through all of our orchestras. Every musician is a leader. So what does this mean for us, their managers and the business leaders? Well, the structure of a modern orchestra is typically hierarchical. The conductor is in charge. The chief executive runs the business. The orchestra leader is the first among equals, and the section principals all have their own principalities over which they rule. But what of all those other individual artists, their musical identities, their own individual brilliance? What about all those leaders? Well, here's a little story very close to my heart. When Sue and I first met, I was a cellist in the London Philharmonic, and Sue was one of our trustees. So I was one of those musicians. And those 15 years at the start of my career taught me a great deal. In a performance of Bruckner's Ninth Symphony, my mind wandered. My concentration wavered. And I used to play quite loudly. In a very short period of time, a large portion of the orchestra had followed me, leaving Kurt Masur and the rest of the orchestra floundering. We weren't on tour, this was back in London. I was sitting somewhere towards the back of the cello section, but I played with some confidence and some volume, and I learnt two very important lessons that day. Firstly, that my days as an orchestral cellist were numbered. But more importantly than that, I learned that orchestras are full of people who are leaders, that any one of my colleagues could have done what I did. And indeed, some of them do from time to time, as I'm sure we all know. But there's a truth in there about leadership that we ignore at our peril, that every musician is a leader. So just in conclusion, I have two very simple questions that I'm going to attempt to answer for you. What does this mean for our musicians? Really, it means that they should be like those children when I started talking, the children who are learning those instruments. They should be creative, they should be imaginative, and they should be free. This feels like a contradiction. And we fear, of course, that it would sound like chaos. But we should never allow our musicians to lose that sense of identity, their musical integrity, their artistic honesty. The occasional Brooklyn Nine moment is a price well worth paying. But what does this look like in practice? Well, here's a few little examples from back home in Salford at the BBC Philharmonic. One of my viola players came to me when I first joined 3 years ago and said, we really ought to have a chamber music series. So now we do have a chamber music series. It's in its second year. It's performed by our musicians, but it's also programmed by our musicians. It's organized by our musicians. It's run by our musicians. That's how we do it now. I give them a budget, I give them a little bit of marketing support, and I give them a venue. And I leave them to get on with it. We have education programs, of course, and we've heard a little bit about those today. But the remarkable thing is most education programs, and certainly all of the education programs at the BBC Philharmonic, were devised, developed, and delivered by our musicians. It all came from the imagination of the musicians. We have 2 members of staff who support them, but they all do that work. More controversially, improvisation. Every musician should improvise. Surely the greatest expression of a musician's identity is to create their own music. As I speak today, back in Salford, the BBC Philharmonic are rehearsing. They're playing Haydn's C Major Cello Concerto on Thursday with Matthew Barley, an English cellist, and they're going to improvise the cadenzas. The orchestra will improvise with the soloist. Just trying to get our musicians to improvise and to take those risks. We must allow them to take risks. We have a whole series of concerts now called the Red Brick Sessions, which is all about risk-taking. It's risk-taking with digital media. The concerts are streamed. We're using new technology developed by the BBC. It has an audio zoom. Just think about that if you're a musician. It has an audio zoom. You can really listen. And the musicians have welcomed this. They love to take a risk. We do Facebook Live. We use digital communications. And the musicians embrace this, and in fact the musicians lead on this. And you'll see that if any of you have been aware of the BBC 10 Pieces programme, of which we're part, where really it's all centred around creating young musicians on a national scale. But the skills they need to do these things are the skills they already have. And they're the skills that we, at our peril, prevent them from using. For us, as managers, it means that actually the musicians shouldn't be learning from us. We should be learning from them. We should be learning what it is to take risks as musicians. We should be learning what it is to communicate as musicians. If you are ever tempted to read a management manual, can I encourage you not to? Can I encourage you to read an orchestral score instead? Go to a concert and listen to it and imagine yourself, as we all are, in that world, taking those risks, being a musician. So my message is very simple. There are no secrets to what we need as musicians or managers in our world. We just need to listen. We need to allow ourselves and our colleagues the freedom to be creative, to be musicians, to be leaders. Just going back to gardens, I love gardens, and I couldn't do this without gardens. Those are 3 very attractive gardens. There's a formal garden, there's a vegetable garden, and there's a wild garden. But the garden I want to see, the gardens that work best, are those that allow the plants to express themselves naturally and beautifully as part of a greater whole. My gardening hero, the late Christopher Lloyd, and there's great Dixter, his garden, or the Dutch master Piet Oudolf. They allow every plant to have its own identity. to grow to its own height, to flower and fruit at its time. To be the custodian of a garden like that takes courage and takes a profound understanding of those plants. To the nervous gardener, this is a recipe for chaos. We need to be like the confident, the bold gardener. We need to allow our musicians to be themselves, to be creative, to take risks, and we need to learn from them. Thank you.